All right, looks like we are live. Good morning, everyone. Hold on. Stan is having a hard time finding the link, so I'm trying to resend it to him. All right, so what's up, man? We got Denzel back on, so it's been a while having you on, man. So how's everything going?
It's going, man. Thanks for having me back on. It's been
No,
great.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I kind of shocked me. I mean, if
Yeah.
hold on, I'm trying
Yeah,
to.
no worries.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. No, sorry, there was some background noise.
Oh,
Okay, cool, cool. Sorry, man. I'm just trying to. I got a new setup going on, and hold on. I see Stan popping in. There he is. Uh, all
Hey,
right.
how's it going?
How's it
hey.
going, Stan? Long time, man. Have you met Denzel before?
No, I don't think I have.
Nope.
Cool.
Nice to meet you.
All
Like,
right.
good to
Well,
meet you, Stan.
so Denzel, you scared the shit out of me because you were supposed to be on a live a few months back,
Yep.
and you didn't show up. And I messaged you, and I didn't hear anything back, and I was kind of worried. And then you finally got back to me. So kind of, like I made sure you're okay talking about it, but
Yep.
why don't you kind of fill my audience in about what happened and why you didn't show up for the live that day?
Yeah. So we had a live planned. I think this was in summer, here in Michigan, obviously. But I end up having a house fire at my, I would say, duplex. So basically, if anybody not familiar, so I have a main dwelling, like a front house, and then I have like a carriage house in the back, like a detached ADU, right? So basically, my neighbor's garage caught fire and end up catching my ADU on fire, and I was at home with my wife at the time, and it was actually the day before my birthday as well. So that definitely added the frosting on the cake. And yeah, and it's been a process. So it was a total loss, lost everything in the fire. So had to relocate, go stay with the in-laws for a few months. Luckily, my front house, where I'm currently in now, my tenants was here, and they were nice enough to, I allowed them to leave early if they needed to find a place. So they found a place. So this is like my first full, almost, yeah, my first full month in here. So I've been doing a lot of renovations and stuff in the meantime of getting this house together. Luckily, this one didn't get touched by the fire whatsoever. So, blessed to be in a situation where I have a house over my head and I don't have to worry about, not having a home or anything like that. So, I've been blessed.
And that's why you missed my live for that. That was the reason.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to call you all the way from Hawaii to come help us out over here because
Yeah,
it's been a
yeah.
process.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
definitely a tough situation. Like, glad you're able to rebound and have a place to stay now.
Yeah, yeah. It's a process. I mean, and we could talk a little bit more about going into that, but like, dealing with the insurance company, dealing with the mortgage company, I had a situation where, I had just got a new homeowners insurance policy, and this is for your audience. I mean, so this is pretty pay attention to this, especially if you have a ADU or a detached ADU. My insurance agent, he made a mistake and put that I lived in my main dwelling, and I never lived in my main dwelling since I bought the place. I always rented it out. So, I yeah, so he put that I lived in the main dwelling and not the back dwelling. So when the fire happened and I had submitted the claim, right, the insurance agent's looking at, or insurance adjuster is looking at my policy, and he's like, "Hey, man, you know, you live in the back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I always lived in the back." And he's like, "Well, we have your homeowner's insurance policy going for its front." So they were trying to cover it as a garage, and it was never a garage, trying to give me basically 30 grand just to demo it and to, you know, build another garage. And I'm like, well, it was never a garage. It's always been ADU. I bought it like that. And I always lived in the back since I owned it for just going on 50 years since I owned it. So like I always lived here. So luckily, I was, able to get access to my cloud, my computer and stuff. And I had my leases and everything that I had in place, all my receipts, all my, taxes and stuff like that show, apartment one, and then my address said apartment one. So, my address said apartment two. apologize for that. But yeah, I started apartment too. So I had to show them like, hey, look, I always lived in the back. So they, finally, 'cause at one point they weren't going to cover anything, and they finally said, oh, okay, well we see it was an error on the agent's mistake, and we're going to cover it. And again, check your policies because of inflation, right? We was underinsured on the ADU, so you know, and so that's been a process too. So that's the first step. So basically, yeah, we just, I had to prove to my insurance company that I lived in the front. I mean, lived in the back. Then you got to a point where it's like, okay, you think you're done, right? So then they issue you out, the check, right? But if you got a mortgage on the property, they're going to want the right? So consideration. So I got I'm like, okay, well, great. Well, now, uh, since I didn't have enough to rebuild it, well, maybe we have to make it into a invest very quickly that the more build it. Now, the insurance company is telling me that you the property. I had to I had to be real estate because, but
Hold on, Stan. Are you having a hard time hearing him?
Yeah, I was actually about to mess with
oh,
that too. Like the audio is cutting in and out a lot.
really?
Yeah, your Denzel, your audio is cutting in and out quite a bit.
Okay, let me see. Because I have my phone near.
Now
Can you hear
it
me?
sounds a
Hear
little
me
bit
now?
better. Yeah.
It's right next to the computer. I don't know if it was like making.
Uh,
Is it still bad?
It might be a connection issue. Like at the same time, the audio is cutting in and out. There's also some looks like the video is buffering a bit.
yeah. Because you're coming in fine, Stan.
You. So that's the. Seem like it's buffering on my end. What about now?
Your,
Still the same on my end. What about you, Mark?
yeah, your audio is still in and out.
Hmm.
Like, the video's not buffering anymore, but the audio is definitely kind of seems like it's going in and out a lot.
Um. Let's see.
What
Uh,
about you, Stan? Have you dealt with anything like this, like a fire in any of your units?
we did have one of our rental units did have a fire inside of it. We weren't living in inside of it. It was a fourplex that we have tenants in the Lafayette area. Uh, it was definitely an interesting story. The water heater that we had installed in that unit, the water heater itself caught on fire, which it happens. Like we have no issues with that. It's if something happens, the tenants hopefully they know to get themselves to safety, do whatever they need to, like call the fire department right away. But for us, it was a very
Is it still
scary
the?
situation because the water heater and their tenant, the water heater caught on fire, and the first thing the tenant does is call us. So it's like they're calling us, going, "Hey, my water heater's on fire. What should we do?
Hey,
Call the
sorry to
fire
cut you.
department."
Hey, sorry to cut you
What
off,
do you
Stan.
want us to do?
Am I still cutting out?
It's better now.
You seem better, yeah.
Yeah, it looks
Okay.
like it's better right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. Sorry about that. Just want to
No,
make sure.
man. I thought
That's
you
fine.
didn't want to be on this again. I'm gonna stop asking you. You just don't show up anymore. You just
No, 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 no.
So you're going with the insurance story?
Oh yeah. So basically, they wanted me to rebuild it, and I was underinsured, so I didn't have, you know, well, I didn't want to use my personal funds to rebuild it, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. So basically, being in real estate with the experience I had, I had to come up with something really creative. So so I'm like, mind you, dealing with the mortgage company, they only can call you. You can't call them, right? It was just a lot. So this went on at least 2 or 3 months after the fact. So basically, what I had to do, and this is for the audience too, I'm like, I got creative. I just went on. They said, well, we want you to submit some floor plans of something that you think you could build or whatever. And but I'm like, well, what could I build? I mean, I don't have enough to build the house again. So basically, what I did was I started with getting an appraisal on the property, right? And I got it appraised as if it was just a single family home with a two-car garage. So appraisers can basically add in like if you add-ons, like, hey, look, if they had a two-car garage, what would the property cost? And so luckily the front house was not touched. So I got an appraisal done, showed that the property was still worth what the property was still worth. And that's kind of odd that you can lose a property and still have the same value. But luckily, I'm in a good, decent area where it still had the same value of the property, what I owed on the property, or what it's currently still worth. So it's still appraised like 20 grand more than what I owed on it. Right. So they was like, oh, okay, we see that. And then, it was such a, it was, I live in a, small community, so everybody knew about the fire. So I was able to get a letter from the city, you know, and with basically supporting the build of my new property that I'm trying to build. So and then I went on to Pinterest, right? This is just being creative at thinking at the moment. Went on to Pinterest, got some floor plans because obviously you have to pay an architect, 3 or 4 grand just to write, plans out. But I said, let me go to Pinterest, found some plans, and then got all that together, and then did a handwritten letter letting them know that, hey, look, I'm a broker, I'm in real estate, I work for the state, I do this consistently, I know the market, I know what contributes to the value of my property. And at the end of the day, I submitted that all to my mortgage company. They sent out an inspector to come out to come look and see what was left of my property because they was just so confused because how my property sit. It's like you have the main dwelling and the back ADU. It sits off the alleyway. So they were like, "Well, we just see one house." I'm like, "Well, it's another house in the back, so you got to go around the alleyway to get to it." So basically, they end up approving those plans, and so now I'm in the process of rebuilding, and I just got my permits for my foundation and flat work just approved today. And it's been a process getting that done, and now we, trying to build before the weather take over. So it's been a process, but it wasn't easy. So I just say for anyone that's ever dealt with the fire, and Dan, you was mentioning it too. I don't know how your experience was, but anyone that has dealt with it, got to get creative. Don't give up. Fighting these insurance companies are not easy to give up. I mean, not easy if if one thing is off or wrong with your policy, they try not to cover it. So you kind of got to cover your bases there. Make sure you know what you're signing with your homeowner's insurance, and then go from there. So yeah, that was my experience so far. So feel free to ask questions or if you want to
Uh,
share.
for us, our experience with the fire wasn't that bad. There was some damage, but essentially the water heater caught on fire.
Mm,
The main damage actually came from the fire department once they arrived. They took the axes, they kind of chopped down the door, chopped down the wall to get to the water heater itself.
mm-hmm.
So most of the damage was done by them, which it is what it is. That's kind of
Oh,
part of the
watch it, bud.
business. What was that?
Watch it, man. We got to do our job.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
I'm not complaining. It's like our concern was, hey,
Oh
make
yeah.
sure the tenants are safe, make sure
Yeah.
do whatever you can to protect the building. But if you gotta take a axe to the wall, by all means, go for it. We'll worry about it afterwards. But the relatively damage wasn't that bad. Like it would the deductible wouldn't have been like it was far less than deductible. So I think it wound up costing 2 or 3 grand to fix the entire thing, including the drywall, including replacing the water heater. So all that just wound up being out of pocket cost. So I wouldn't call that like not a major incident at all. At the end of the day, I was just happy that the fire was contained to just the
Yes.
water heater closet. The tenants were completely fine. So that was my main concern the entire time.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you had that experience, man. I'm telling you, when I was there, you never think of it. And me and my wife we were going to go out for dinner that night, and because it's my birthday the next day, so I'm like, oh, maybe we go out on a Friday instead of a Saturday. And I chose not to, and luckily my Ring camera. Anybody got cameras? Please get cameras on your property. But my Ring camera, it picked up. Well, it said someone's in the alleyway, but it's always someone walking back there, so it's not, not nothing big to me. But I just so happened to look at my phone this time, and I'm like, I see it, and I didn't even notice it was the fire. I seen a police officer coming to my door. I mean, well, not coming to my door. He was coming to my neighbor's garage, and he was like had his fire extinguisher, and he was putting it out with a fire extinguisher. But he was the first. It was a police officer, so he was the first one on the scene. So I'm like,
No, don't say
yeah,
that.
yeah, he was the first one on the scene. So I'm sitting there like, what is going on? I'm told my wife, I'm like, hey, it's a police officer in the back alley because all I see is the lights, and he's just the one. I'm like, I said, there's a fire, and then I went to the side door. I'm like, hey, is everything all right? He's like, and my car's parked back there. So he's like, no, you got to move these cars out the way. You got to get out. And I'm like, okay. So we moved our cars out. My dog is like 100-pound chocolate lab, so I had to pick him up and like bring him out, and and I literally watched the whole thing, and I'm thinking. At no point though, because her garage was still on fire for like 15 to 20 minutes, and honestly, at no point I didn't think wasn't going back in the house. I'm like, all right, it'll be done, it'll be contained. I'll be back and then tonight, and then eventually, it was a malfunction with our fire hydrants. We have old water mains in the area, so our now I know you could speak to this, but we had so we had no pressure, right? So they had to run a hose from the second block all the way down to my house to come through the alleyway, and then the fire truck they came too close so to the house, and then the heat was so hot that they tried to uh, the truck started to melt, so they had to move the truck back, and and I got video of all this stuff. It's crazy, but they had to move the truck back. But then I guess something malfunctioned when they took it out of the ignition the way it was because they was trying to get water on it. So it took them at least 30 minutes or so just to get water on it. And then I'm sitting here like, oh my god, and I'm like, everybody's looking at me. It's kind of like you on the news, man. It's like a football stadium in front of my house. Everybody's watching, and I'm just like, yeah, and then I let my tenants know. My tenant, he didn't even know at the time. He's in the front because I got it's a separated fence between our yards. We got a different yard, so it's totally separated. So I'm calling him. I'm like, hey man, you might want to get out. There's a fire in the back. And he said, really? I'm in here making a pizza. I'm like, well, I'm like, well, man, you need to get out. And luckily, like I said, the front house didn't get touched whatsoever. So I'm blessed for that, and I'm happy to be able to have a home, and then I still have rentals and stuff, but I wasn't going to like kick any of my tenants out for anything like that. My tenants were nice enough to leave, and they found a place on the next block, so it all worked out. But it was definitely one of those things. It wasn't easy, or it was one of those life experiences you probably still think about it, so it's crazy.
Well, I'm glad you're able to kind of joke about it a little bit and talk about it now, and nobody was hurt. So that's
Yeah.
great, and hopefully people can learn from this. And I want to say what's up to Kyle. He's here, a blue collar landlord. So he subscribed to you, Denzel. So go
Oh,
check him out. He's also on YouTube and Instagram, but he's in the school community.
okay.
And then there's also Ike here. He's also a firefighter. So he said firefighters doing more damage than fire, so unheard of. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna blame probably the police officer was parked in the way. So that's why the fire truck had to park where it did.
No,
And
well, the police officer, he went, but it was crazy because like we had like two different departments come by, and
mm,
I'm not throwing shade at my city. I love the city I'll stay in and such, but it's like you know, I wish it was to handle more immediate. They had to get another department to come over to come try to look at it, and I mean, what came over for emergency or whatever, and they helped put it out too. So it took two different departments to do it, but it is what it is. I mean, you don't plan for it. I'm pretty sure they wasn't planning for it that night because we don't really typically have fires, so it's just one of those things. So it is what it is.
It's like
Everybody's
the
safe.
area I live. They anytime there's a fire of any kind, they kind of need to respond very quickly because all the houses they're right next to each other. There's like 2 or 3 feet in between each
Yep.
house in our neighborhood. So it's like,
Yep.
well, we better get here fast, or else this thing's gonna spread very quickly.
Yep. And
Luckily, a lot of this area they're older houses, which means they're built with like much older wood, which is more fire resistant. We have slate roofs in some of the buildings, so we have a lot of protections in here that kind of help mitigate fire or slow down fire. I know it's a lot of the newer houses they kind of built with plywood
yep.
essentially,
Yep.
and a lot of the newer houses have a lot less resistance to things like that happening. So that's one advantage that we do have in being an older area of the city.
Yeah, Stan, I'm the same way. Here, my house was built in 1912. I mean, so it's super old.
1911.
Oh, there you go. So obviously 104 years old or something like that. The house is super close, right? Where it's like, and close in proximity. I probably can, like you said, 3 to 5 feet. I probably could, put my if I can put my both my hands out, I can probably touch my neighbor's house and that house. But yeah, same way. And the firefighter was saying like, hey, look, with these old houses, they can pretty much just burn. They'll burn. They won't just collapse. They sit there on fire for, you know, an hour if you let it, and let it
Yep.
burn away because of the material that it's made out of. And yeah, they so close. I'm surprised. It could have been a worse. I mean, it took out a car, it took out, another driveway. I mean, not a driveway, garage vinyl siding and melted it a couple about 20 feet away. But it could have been a lot worse. So, but it was a pretty bad fire. It was on the news and got all the news links to it and everything. It was a pretty big fire. We don't really have them here, so yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. Glad everything worked out like, eventually with insurance.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the new thing I'm building now though, because my property only had 2 spots for parking, and I don't have a driveway. So now I'm doing a 2-car garage with an apartment on top of it.
Oh,
So yeah,
nice.
so it's gonna be about a 610 square feet. I'm still gonna probably be able to rent it out for like $1,500 a month.
Nice.
And it give me, I'll rent the other side out parking for the tenant, then I'll park on the other side. It'll work out. So it's actually, not saying I'm happy about what happened, but I made it the best situation I could
Yeah.
possibly do with what I was given. So I'm happy about
I
that.
know a lot of areas around the country, like ADUs are still kind of a newer concept in a lot of spots where like a lot of areas they need to adjust to it now because a lot of places just there's not enough houses. So now
Exactly.
they're finally getting to the point where they're allowing ADUs, but I know a lot of regions they're trying to fight back with zoning where they're trying to prevent ADUs from being built because of zoning.
Yep.
In our area, we've had ADUs for the last couple hundred years, so for us,
Same.
it's not a new concept at all. So that's one nice part we have. A lot of the houses I was looking at when I was first looking around for a house in this area, they didn't call them ADUs exactly, but they had like the in-law suites, the carriage
Yep.
houses, but they were everywhere. Like we were looking at a place called like that was built as a triplex. In reality, it was one very large single-family home with a duplex ADU in the back.
Yep.
It was just 2 studio apartments that were built next to each other inside an ADU.
Where are
So
you at?
New Orleans.
Oh wow, yeah. New Orleans got our infrastructure too. Yeah, that we got the same thing. We got like in our area we have like, so you have like a duplex in the front, like up and down unit, and then you have like a carriage house in the back, or
Yep.
you may have like like a single family in the front, then a carriage house in the back. So we get them to where we got some triplexes, we got some fourplexes here too. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what I realized, like a lot of the older communities or around the country or such, they they had them. I mean,
Yeah,
people, a
and
lot
I
of
think that
families,
was a great system back then. That's definitely a system that a lot of areas should be bringing back. A
right,
lot of areas with zoning, they are very, very determined to keep with the single family detached homes,
right,
which that's the lowest density housing possible. And if
exactly.
you want, like, if the population in an area is going to keep growing, the area of the city is not going to keep growing. Your only choices are you're either going to price people out by making them live further away, or
You're right.
eventually you're going to have to bite the bullet and say, you know what? If we want people to live here and we want the population to keep growing, we need denser houses. Like,
Right.
there's no other option.
Yeah, I know. And it's and obviously housing affordability, obviously, I just seen like an article or something yesterday where it was like, or was it yesterday or the day before? But it basically said that I think the average homeowner is currently like the first time buyer, I think it was like 55 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I
Like,
saw the
yeah,
same article.
yeah, I'm like, geez, and but ADUs and these types of different types of housing, studios, people are leaning towards that. People need housing. It's hard to buy
I
a house
think
in good areas.
2 years ago, the average age of the first time home buyer was around 37 or 38. And in the
Okay.
last year, it jumped up to 54. A lot of it was due to interest rates. So because interest rates went from 3% to 7%, it just
Right.
priced so many people out of the market within one year. and the housing price didn't really adjust back down to compensate for the increased interest rate. And
Right.
I have to guess, I don't think the house price. I think there's a little bit of price adjustment that might happen in housing,
Yeah.
but we still have the same problem. There's just a very low supply of houses,
Yeah.
so I don't see a affordability being fixed in the near future until additional houses are being built, and additional houses more likely is going to have to come in the form of increased density housing.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that statement. And in my area right now, I've been looking in a couple of different areas, and what I've been noticing is that the inventory slightly kicked up a little bit.
A
House
little
prices
bit,
a little bit, just a little bit, but the prices haven't came down yet. And I'm
yeah.
like, when are these prices going to drop? I mean, they're sitting here, inventory is coming up, and I think people after an election and such, they probably realize that like, oh well, it's not dropping to the 5% or whatever right now. We're still in mid sixes or sixes, especially for investments, a little bit higher. But um,
The housing inventory, it's higher compared to a year or two ago, but the problem is a year or two ago it was at historic lows. Yes, we are like it was at near zero inventory, so we went from near zero inventory to a tiny sliver of
ex-
inventory.
exactly,
That's it's an improvement, but it's not an improvement to the point where it's going to have a drastic effect on house prices. Like house
exactly.
prices nationally, they're still going up. Like they're not going up to how much they were going up in between 2020 and
Yeah,
2022, but now they're at the rate they normally go up between 3 and 5% per year is usually what historically houses are appreciated by on a national level. So
yeah,
during 2000 to 2020, 2020 to 2022, like they were zooming up 10 to 15% per year. That was ridiculous.
yep,
And so now it's just we're back down to a stable house price increase level.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I don't see any scenario where the prices are going to go back down unless we have a sudden rush of inventory enter the market one way or another.
yeah. I think we're gonna be here hanging around for a while. I think it's gonna be like this. I think you get like the stable appreciation, but I think for the most part, the inventory may slowly tick in, but I don't know. I don't know if it ever get to where it was before. Just it got to be really the economy got to go really down.
I think it'll happen eventually, maybe. Like the big problem was after the 2008 recession, what that really affected housing. A lot
Yeah,
of general contractors, a lot of builders, they exited the market at that point in 2008. So if you look at the amount of inventory we were building on a per year basis, it just plummeted between 2000 and 2009, and it never got back up to that same level. Meanwhile, the population continued to grow. So we were building less houses than we required. The population was still growing. And now we're just in a perfect storage scenario where we're just aren't in a position to build enough houses. And there's a lot of changes that need to be made in order to be able to get that additional housing built one way or another.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that.
Well, I want to say what's up to Jason for stopping by. He's in Chicago, so he's driving, so he probably didn't see my message. But I did want to remind people that Denzel's in Detroit, so he's a
Yep,
Lions fan. So we don't
I
like your
did see
poop.
that. I chuckled when
Ah,
I seen the comment on the side. I'm like, yeah, well, it's been a long awakening for us guys. So bear with us. I'm very
what do
happy.
you? Yeah, but me and Jason are Bears fans, and we should have beat you guys, or at least.
Oh, I know
But
you guys are really upset. I don't even know what happened. I mean, I was watching that game, and I'm like,
They forgot to look at the clock.
yeah, and I'm like, what is going? First of all, it was
no,
third.
not
It,
forgot. These are
I
guys
think
that
I think the coach was trying to get fired on purpose. Honestly, I think he was done. I'm thinking like he was like, look, I mean, I heard he was not really happy with Chicago anyway, so he
What do
probably
you
was just.
mean? He has the franchise quarterback. He's like the best young quarterback in the NFL.
I don't know about that. I don't know
What do
about.
you
It
mean?
was it was
I don't know.
billed as the best quarterback,
He
but
is
remember
built.
5 years ago or 6 years ago, Trevor Lawrence was billed as the best, like the next coming of Andrew
Mm,
Luck and Peyton Manning.
Yep.
that
Hasn't
is
really worked out well
true.
for the Jaguars.
Well,
Nah.
what? Yeah, but Caleb is doing well. All right, let's move on a little bit before I get upset here. But Buzz Tune, thanks for stopping by. Um, maybe we move on to some Bitcoin or some other stuff after. But like so, Denzel, after going through something like this, is there anything that maybe in hindsight would you have done differently as far as asset protection or
Yeah.
insurance or Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much cover myself. I got the, as far as the umbrella policy, I got $1 million of that, just to, for tenants and stuff like that. If trying to come after you or anything. I try to protect myself the much as I possibly can. The thing I probably would have do differently is that the homeowner's insurance. You got to look at it, and you got to make sure that the agent that you're working with, is clear about your situation, especially for investors or house hackers, the people who's living in one unit and another unit. They got to make sure it's right, because what happens is a lot of times, especially in our areas like Stan, where you got old communities and you got things like that, especially, you know, the agent need to come to the property. They need to see, the setup, right? You can't just tell them over the phone and be like, hey, yeah, I live in the back and you live in the front, or I live in this. They don't understand. So they write the policy out. You're thinking you're being covered fully. And the reality is you're not. So technically I had this coverage for at least a year, because it's a new carrier I went with. And I was never covered. Because technically, if something would have happened like it did, I would never had any coverage, because all my coverage, all my use of loss, meaning that basically, like, if something was to happen to the property, they had paid for me to stay somewhere, because they wasn't even doing that at first. They were like, hey, look, that was for the front house, or like your personal belongings. They wasn't get they were going to give me that, but for the most part, they was covering the front house as if I was living there, and I never lived there. So, as investors, you need to make sure if you're living on a property and they got multiple units on it, or if it's detached, or obviously if it's one single unit, you're fine. But if you living in a detached property on a property, you want to make sure that it's written right. It's written right, because most carriers, like, even like the carrier, when I talked to the insurance adjuster, he was like, "Hey, look, man, we wouldn't even cover this if we knew you lived in the back. Like, we wouldn't even wrote the policy. It literally had to go to higher ups, like high ups, for them to even approve. There's like a one-time exception they made for me, because they know that I had every evidence that I lived back here. So it had to be an error of omissions with my agent. He made a mistake. So, but yeah, I did a one-time policy for payout for me, because they knew that I had the evidence. But if I didn't have that, I would be screwed. If I didn't have anything saved. So keep tracks of the receipts, keep tracks of the taxes, and have them uploaded somewhere else. Just don't have the printout. Keep track of all your leases. I don't care if you've been a landlord for 15, 20 plus years. Have every receipt. And track all those leases of the tenants that you had in there, where they live. Have your certificates of occupancy updated, and all of those things. They know. But yeah, that's the only thing I probably would have. Well, that's the main thing I would have did differently. And then just making sure you got enough coverage too, right? Especially if you're in a, that's a shame on me, right? Because I'm signing. You get this 100 page packet of, oh yeah, sign here, signature here, initial here. Okay, you're covered. But you got to go through those, see what's being covered. I should have known I didn't have enough dwelling coverage on it, right? And especially with inflation going up and the building costs, you know, uh, you can't build a house for what you think you bought it for. So, for example, they give you, numbers, but they said that it will cost $257,000 to build the back, and I wasn't even nearly half or 50% of that being covered, right? So now I'm still paying out of pocket to even build what I'm building back here. But in reality, is it'd pay itself off in the long run. But it's just at the end of the day, you know, if you bought a house for 300 grand, don't expect it to be rebuilt for 300 grand. You might want to put 500 grand for dwelling coverage on there, just so. And I'm not an insurance, guy or anything like that. I'm just telling you guys, like, you might want to put extra coverage to make sure you can rebuild this house maybe twice. If you build it once, at least once over, one X over.
For the insurance, whenever our insurance policies, whenever they're pricing our properties, they don't go off appraisal values. They go off replacement values.
Yep.
So essentially, that's one thing to check for the replacement value. It's essentially them coming up with a price with the theory of the entire house is gone. So how much would it cost to build this house from the ground back up?
Exactly.
That's the replacement cost that we have inside of all our coverages.
Yep. Yep. I totally agree. Yeah.
And the other
Totally
thing
agree.
with insurance is making sure you have all the bases covered. Like we have our properties that have three separate insurances. We have the general hazard insurance, which covers any damage to the property. We have a separate flood insurance because we're in a flood prone area. Like we're not even living in any. We purposely make sure we don't buy any houses within flood zones, but
Yeah,
we still have flood insurance just in case because you never know what could happen. And then we have a separate liability coverage for all the houses. So they're all rentals. So if
yeah.
something happens to anyone at the house, hazard insurance is not going to cover it. That's why you need a separate liability insurance.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I have that umbrella policy I have on mine. But it covers everything, right? Where something's, But another thing to I note too, make sure for investors, if you want, you should have your tenants have their own, tenant liability insurance as well, because uh, my agent was telling me basically what happens if something happens to the property, they can now go after their insurance if they have insurance, right? So I make sure I have my tenant, have insurance on their stuff or whatever their personal belongings, which they should. I know most times they don't. It says it in
Yeah.
the lease, but you don't really check for it. But I get a notification, and then make sure they put you as a party of interest on the account, so that way every time, yeah, I know when she renews it, right? So when she renews her policy, it sends me a notification and says, "Hey, so and so renewed their policy." So for that, I make sure that they have liability insurance that way. So if something did happen with the property, I can have my insurance agent go after their insurance, and that it hopefully get the funds reimbursed from you from that.
And typically, renter's insurance, it's not really that expensive. Renter,
Exactly.
it's usually 20 to 25 bucks a month. So
Yep.
compared to a lot of other insurances, insurance is some of the most affordable insurance you possibly get, and it works
Exactly.
out for the tenant as well. Like if something burns down, like if they're going after your policy, that your policy is probably it's going to cover the damage to the property, but it's not going to cover any of their personal possessions. So
Exactly.
if a tenant doesn't have renter's insurance, they're kind of screwed out of pocket for all their personal
Yeah.
possessions.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree. Agree.
Yeah, like I said, man, I'm glad you're able to bounce back and have a great attitude about it. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys rather keep talking about this topic, or
It
I
doesn't
mean,
matter.
I know
So
Bitcoin.
venturing,
Anyone of you own Bitcoin? Bitcoin hit
uh,
100K late last night or early or whatever you want to call it, but hit 100K. I saw that.
Yeah, I've seen
I know
that.
Bitcoin's been doing pretty well. It's not an investment strategy I personally use at all. I have zero Bitcoin.
Yep.
Uh, I definitely understand that it's been a great investment strategy for the last decade, and I know many people personally who've made quite a bit of money off of it. It's just not something I personally believe in, so I've never put my own money in there.
Well, BuzzTune does have Bitcoin, I know, but he also has a great question here. He says, "What do you guys do for your investing team for the holidays? If you give gifts, do you write those off?"
Yeah, if I give gifts, you can anything like if you have the ability to write something off on your taxes, do it. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. For the holidays though, no, I don't usually give gifts. I just, I send Texas, just
Yeah,
saying
who
I
wants
appreciate them.
Lions gear? Who wants like any Detroit Lions gear or
Yeah,
anything? I
that
mean, what?
stuff is up in price right now, so can't even get a jersey.
Well, it's nice to have a shirt with a team that's actually 11-1.
Yeah. Anyway, who should be 10-2, but um, Okay, say if you were to buy, let's say you were investing out of state. So like I'm in Hawaii, and we're me and Mikey BuzzTune invest in Pittsburgh. So we're sending like gifts from Hawaii, right? Like like maybe like an aloha shirt type of thing, or
1 second,
aloha.
I'm on a
Yeah,
I'm laptop on a charger. Sorry.
aloha chocolate or candies from like the islands, right? So let's say, Stan, you were investing in remotely out of state. From your state or where you live, what kind of gifts would you be sending maybe your team?
Ooh. And we have a lot of stuff on Mardi Gras, New Orleans, Bourbon Street, all that kind of gear. We have plenty of like souvenir shirts that are from New Orleans. I think one of the big things we have is Tabasco sauce. I know a lot of places they have Tabasco sauce, but we have many different varieties of Tabasco sauce and different other
Hmm.
hot sauces that we have here in
Ooh.
New Orleans. So that's one of the popular gifts that we send around everywhere. We also have Cave du Monde, which is a local coffee with chicory in it. They're just really, really popular. So that's another popular gift that we can send and give it to people from New Orleans. I just there's so much in New Orleans. It's such like a hotbed of culture, of so much activity. So it could be something like as like to all the guests that we have inside our Airbnb, we have an entire toy chest filled with like stuff that we caught from Mardi Gras or from other parades, from like different beads, and we tell the guests, "Hey, help yourselves." Like we literally have like we live on the parade route. Like I'm at every single last parade that we have on Mardi Gras. So whenever we walk home, like we need to like there's 4 parades in any given day. Once we get to the busy season, after each parade, we have like book bags filled with roses, full of beads. Like we have a wagon where we put all our stuff into, so we are completely filled. We have so much stuff. So we pick a couple specific pieces that we like and keep for ourselves, and the rest of it we give out to our Airbnb guests throughout the entire year.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So Denzel, I'm not sure if you heard kind of what I was asking Stan. So I was saying that I'm in Hawaii. I invest in Pittsburgh, so we
Yeah.
send our team whatever stuff from Hawaii. So if you were investing remotely somewhere else out of
Yeah.
state, what would you send from Detroit to your team?
Well, definitely Lions gear right now. That's got to be the thing. I
They'd
gotta
be
keep putting.
insulted.
I
They
gotta
would
keep doing
fire
that
you
to
right
you.
after that. They'd be like, I don't want to work with this guy anymore.
I gotta do that to you now. But yeah. That's a great question. What would I send? What would I send? What's the like? I guess so. Michigan. Well, if I'm thinking about Michigan, but I live like in the Metro Detroit area, so I'm trying to think about Detroit in the sense like, what would I send? Obviously, we know for our better made chips, so I might send some better made chips over there. Maybe you know, got a beautiful museum. Maybe I'll send if they was out of town, they wanted to come in town, stuff like that. More of attractions. I would think we don't have too many attractions, but we have enough attractions where I might just send tickets to come to see us, come visit, come do a tour of Detroit because I mean it's one of those things that we don't have like one of like how you know you have things like native to like New Orleans or whatever like you only can find in New Orleans or this is Mardi Gras and stuff like that, but we have a lot of different things that I feel like if you were here, you can, uh, you know, you can look at and be like, okay, well, I see the hype around Metro Detroit. So I think you got a lot of different attractions like that. Our river walks, our downtown area, our food is really good. So it's like things that I couldn't necessarily send, but I will want them to come experience. I guess I would say.
Jason said he would send a box of ammo from Chicago.
you know,
I
listen,
was cracking up as soon as I saw that.
that was hilarious. Yeah, we don't. It just depends, man. It's like any other city. You go, you go in. You got some bad areas to go into, but for the most part, I don't think. Sorry, Jason. I don't think Detroit is on Chicago's level. I mean,
When I was in Chicago, I was walking around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, but I was right along the river downtown, so I was felt completely safe the entire time. I
same.
definitely the same thing in New Orleans. If you're in New Orleans and you're walking along Bourbon Street, like there's so many lights there, so many people there, so much police there, so much security there because people like the city knows, yeah, people from all over the world are coming and spending money on Bourbon Street. So they're protecting Bourbon Street at all costs. But
Yeah.
if you go to other neighborhoods, probably not the best idea in the middle of the night. So it's like
No.
any other big city. You know the good neighborhoods, you know the bad neighborhoods. If you're in a tourist area, you're typically fine. Like every
Yeah.
single country I've been to, they protect the tourist areas at all costs. Like
Yep.
when I went down to even when I was in Peru a couple months ago, I was in the town center where most of the tourists go. Like it's like the town center, and it's so touristy that 3 of the shops they have in the middle of their plaza is Starbucks, McDonald's, KFC. So they are definitely catering to international visitors in that specific
Yes.
area. But like, every corner had a SWAT team on it in full gear, and they were putting that much security specific in that spot to make sure that the tourist area is safe.
Yeah. Yeah. That.
So Jen's here. I want to say hi to Jen. She's one of the I guess leaders you can say of the ladies of ORAT group in school community. So thanks for stopping by, Jen.
Hey, Jen.
She'll be in Vegas also for the ORAT event. But where was it? Yeah, so I didn't know about the hot sauce, Stan. Is that a bit is that a big thing in
Tabasco sauce. It's actually made in a town called New Iberia, which is about an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours away from New Orleans itself. But that's where Tabasco sauce first started. That's where the primary company still is. And the
oh,
primary factory, it still ships all over the world from that one small little factory. Actually, the town I'm in right now, it's Lafayette, Louisiana. The Tabasco sauce factory is probably a 20-minute drive from where I'm sitting right now.
oh, I have to hit you up for some unique sauces, Tabasco sauce, man.
They have about 10 or 20 different flavors of Tabasco sauce in the store they have over there. They don't have it around most other
Yeah.
stores.
Huh.
You got to try that. I love
Yeah.
salsa.
So
It's good.
Denzel though, it also looks cold where you are. What is
Yes,
the
yes, it's very cold today. Today it is, I think, 31 degrees, but I think it's currently like 24 degrees. So it's cold. Yeah, and that's another thing too. My team's trying to lay foundation next week. And I just hope that we're supposed to get like it's supposed to get up to like the 49 degrees, which is like a blessing here in Detroit in December. But we can do that. We can probably lay our foundation and do our trench work and stuff like that for the plumbing. And, yeah. So, but yeah, it's very cold here. Right. But it's not the worst though. It's not like below 5 or like 10 degrees, but it's cold.
It never really gets too cold at all in New Orleans.
Lucky.
In the 15 years I've lived here, I think I remember 3, 4, maybe 5 days where the temperature got to zero in those 15 years. Like whenever the temperature drops to zero, there's like an entire red alert that comes through. They shut down the entire city. No one's allowed to drive anymore. Like they go into full out red alert whenever there's like below freezing temperatures in the city. Meanwhile, if there's a hurricane, as long as the hurricane doesn't reach Cat 3, evacuate, don't evacuate, we're fine either way. Like when it gets
Fine
to
anyway.
Cat 4, then they
Yeah,
start
both of
telling
you.
us to evacuate.
Yeah, I
But
was
we
just
can
about to
deal with the
say.
hurricanes.
I was just about to say you guys deal with a couple different elements that I don't get a chance to deal with, luckily. So no water. Well, we do got a lot of water here in Michigan, clear, fresh water, by the way, that you guys all want. But at the end of the day, we I don't the hurricanes and the volcanoes and everything else goes on
Oh, we
over
definitely don't
there.
have volcanoes over here.
yeah, well
Yeah, I
no
know.
with, yeah. Well so that's the thing too, right? So volcano it's only certain islands have the active volcanoes. So that's so a lot of times like that's the funny thing, right? When they say there's a volcano erupts, people start messaging people, social media or whatever, and then there's people like I live on this island. The volcano is on this island. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
but no, that's a great point though. We're talking about real estate and things like that, and people are always trying to find like the best market or whatnot, right? But like we're talking about, right? Every market kind of has their own challenges, right? Like like you're saying, volcanoes or tornadoes or cold temperatures. So every market kind of has a challenge that you may have to overcome or kind of figure out how to way to navigate it in that area. So I think that's the one thing, right? People don't get frustrated when you're looking for a market, right? Like worried about these specific things. You just there's other people doing it in that market, so you connect with them. So if you wanna, if Detroit interests you, reach out to Denzel. If New
Yep.
Orleans interests you, reach out to Stan. And these people can help you, right? And figure out how to navigate this market that they're investing in. And
Absolutely. Even
oh, hold
even
on,
going between.
we have a superstar here in the chat. So we have a Dion talk financial freedom.
Oh, hey,
What
Dion.
will you do different in 2025? So Dion, if you haven't heard yet, Denzel might be a great guest on your channel. He just had a fire at one of his units, and so he, so overcoming that adversity and figuring things out. So, but yeah, so what will you do different in 2025?
Mm,
Compared to the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Uh, Hey, for me, in starting 2020, I just that's when I was in a major buying mode because I think 2008 and I think 2020, I think those are two very very great opportunities to jump into real estate. 2008, I was still way too young, so I didn't even
right.
wasn't able to recognize the opportunity. When price houses drop to that level where you're able to buy them in foreclosure, buy them at great deals because of what was happening in 2008. 2020, I kind of was more mature at that point. I was able to read the market a lot more. As soon as I saw the interest rate drop to zero, as soon as I saw a lot of stimulus spending, the first thing that went to my mind was A, the interest rates, we're not going to see these interest rates again. This is a great time to buy. And B, with all the stimulus spending, inflation is going to suck. So like I immediately recognized that situation of, hey, this is 2020 to 2021. This is a once a decade opportunity to buy investment properties right now based on these market conditions and what's probably going to happen in 2022 and onwards, which we've seen what happened in 2022 and onwards. So a lot of it is definitely reading the market. Right now, when I'm seeing the market in 2025 and like above, I think we're just in a more stable market. Like I don't think we're going to have the same price appreciation. But the downside is because we had so much price appreciation in addition to high interest, I've kind of like I'm stepping back from buying additional properties. Now I'm just trying to improve the properties I do have. The main thing I'm trying to improve right now is one of my properties is an Airbnb slash short term rental. So a lot of the money I'm investing right now is into improving that specific Airbnb in order to try to increase the occupancy that we have on a yearly basis there. So that's essentially my 2025 goal is simply improving that aspect of that specific unit.
Well, for me, like you mentioned, I was too young to buy real estate in 2008. But for me, obviously, we're building this back to be obviously priority, right? Because for me, that was uh, you know, house hacking, right? So now I'm paying my mortgage for where I initially was paying $600 to live here, right? So, but after that it's over, I would say that's probably done like mid. I'm going to get a little bit more. You mentioned the market is stable.
Your audio is cutting
Yeah.
out again, Denzel. It's doing the
What about now?
it's cutting in and out again.
What about now?
Still the same.
Let's see.
All right. So, I guess we'll until he comes back. I guess for me, I oh, hold on, he's back. That was quick. Hold on. Let me pop him in here.
I know another goal I have going 20, not maybe not 2025, but maybe like 2026, 2027. Commercial real estate is still one of the goals I have of trying to get into larger properties. So commercial real estate. So around a fourplex, I'm hoping my next property is going to be a 10plex. I think there's definitely potential in commercial properties in the near future, simply because of the way they're priced, the way they're financed. They're tied not so much to the actual comp values, they're tied to what is the value of the property in terms of how much revenue is able to generate as a property. And with high interest rates, I think there's going to be potential in the future because unlike residential properties, I think 95 to 97% of all residential properties in the United States, they're fixed rate loans. So they're 30-year fixed rate loans. For commercial properties, they're usually 3 or 5 year adjustable rate mortgages or they're balloon payments. So if someone bought a residential property 3 years ago, they're fine for the next 27 years. Their interest is not going to change. Commercial property, if someone bought that 3 years ago, that means they're about 2 years away from having that new higher interest rate really spike up the amount of money they need to pay on a mortgage. If the mortgage rate, if the expenses they have for paying a mortgage spikes up, that's going to affect how much the property is able to generate revenue for them, which in turn, because it's a commercial property, is actually going to greatly decrease the revenue, like the appraisal of that specific property. So that's why I think there's definitely some room in the next couple of years in commercial properties.
Can you guys hear me now?
Much better.
I
Yeah,
don't know
definitely better.
what's
All right.
going on. I'll have to change my location next time, so I
No, no.
apologize.
So I
Uh,
got about 10 more minutes. I gotta get my son up for school soon. But yeah, Denzel, what would
yeah,
you do different for 2025?
yeah. So again, I said um, building the back is going to be priority. Obviously, getting that rental income back there. But once that's done, hopefully that's mid 2025 for me. like Stan said, I believe that the market is and currently stabilizing. So it is kind of harder to find deals, that cash flow, So I want to get a little bit more creative on the creative side, maybe some land contracts, uh, and trying to find out some, off market properties, trying to find something, where, I can get a little bit more meat on the bone, the saying I would use. But I'm still looking for single families. I still think it's a great market for it. Excuse me. I still think it's a great market for it. I think that finding somewhere to live and someone like we talked about inventory shortages and such like that, it's still going to be a good place for people to find a place to live. People still want to they can't buy houses. So if you can buy them at a good price, you still can be able to get a good deal. So I'm still going to stick with the single families for now. But yeah, I'm just going to get a little bit more creative. But I'm staying consistent though. I'm just going to keep on the same with the
All right. So Jen, who says she resonates with Stan's story and goals, so she feels that she needs to talk to you, Stan. So Stan, I'll connect you with Jen. Watch out. She's kind of a troublemaker, so just be careful.
I live with
Chester,
troublemakers in New Orleans.
she's in California.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
leave my Instagram here, and that's usually a pretty easy way to reach me.
yeah, hold on. Let me see. Chester's here, wealth building journey. So he says, Denzel, what areas would you consider for multi-family properties?
I would. My area is nice. My zip code is 48230. Nice somewhere. Detroit has a lot of opportunities too. You can get templexes and the bigger units out there too for good prices or whatever. Anywhere near downtown, off of the Woodward, that's like probably like 5 to 10 minutes away from Little Caesars Arena and stuff like that. So you find some duplexes there. But main thing is you want to be in Detroit for sure, and I'm pretty sure majority of the rest of the country. You want to find a place where you got good schools, uh, you can get good tenants, right? Less turnaround. People want to stay in the area, amenities, things like that. But for sure, I would say my area is probably the prime location for we have them all around. So if you're looking, feel free to reach out to me as well. I can definitely push you in the right direction to get good units here.
I think for a lot of people, they try finding specific cities to invest in. I think a better idea would be find a city you like and then find the areas inside that specific city that are better to invest in. Like people have been making money in Louisiana, in Chicago, in California. People are making money on real estate in every single state in the country. It's
Yep.
just a matter of what are your specific goals? Are you aiming for cash flow for rental? Are you aiming for price appreciation that's going to continue to appreciate rapidly? I mean, like if all of a sudden I have a deal of a lifetime drop on my lap in the middle of San Francisco, I'm not going to turn that down because it's not an area I was initially looking for. But like, it's more important to evaluate on a deal by deal basis as opposed to specifically trying to target a specific city. Like I can find a bad deal here in New Orleans, and I can find a good deal over in Pittsburgh. It's more about identifying what is a good deal and deciding whether or not do you have a network in that location to be able to get a good work the good deal. Like if for example, like if I want to buy in say Pittsburgh and theoretically I know no one in that city, I know no real estate agents, I know no property managers, even if an amazing deal falls into my lap, I may not be well equipped to make the most out of that deal because I don't have a network in place to actually help me run that property.
Yep. And that's the next thing for me too is building my network as well. So I'm glad to be back on here. Thank you. And
Thought you were
just
avoiding me.
definitely not avoiding you. I needed you that night actually. but but yeah, but yeah, just expanding my network, being more involved, going to a lot of real estate meetups, and that's where you're gonna find those deals at. And then I
Yeah,
see we got a question here for Outer Drive. Yeah, Outer Drive is a good decent area. I'm actually like, well, you got East Outer Drive, you got West Outer Drive. I'm near East Outer Drive. I'm probably like what 10 minutes away. It's a good area. We got some areas in Detroit or that where it's really good to invest into. So yeah, Outer Drive is
I
good.
think going near a hospital, that's always going to be you're going to have constant traveling nurses are going to be a good target market.
Yep.
That does bring up a good point. I think a very good idea is find out what does your like what kind of tenant do you want to cater to, what kind of guest do you want to cater to, and find a property in a location that's going to be tailored for that specific demographic. If you want to tailor it to traveling nurses, get some place near a hospital. If you can't get a place that's in the middle of multiple hospitals, for us, we cater to students because we're right next to Loyola and Tulane University, where a 5 or 10 minute streetcar drive right down the street, and our house is located right near the street road tracks. So that was when we were trying to find the Airbnb. We were specifically trying to find, okay, how can we find an area where our Airbnb guests they can easily get back and forth from the French Quarter? Where are they going to be in the middle of a lot of other attractions? So we really emphasized the location in every single property we're targeting.
Agreed. Agreed.
All right. Everyone's popping in now when I gotta get off here. So all you people, thank you for stopping by. We got Janitor on fire, we got Casey, but I gotta get out of here. We got Jack stopping by. But before I do leave, so let's see, quickly. So Chester, reach out to Denzel because you have a lot of questions. It seems like so. Reach out to Denzel. You guys, I think you do have his contact number.
Yep.
If you need it, I'll send it back to you. Jen, if you're still there, I put Stan's Instagram handle, his blog, and also his Amazon book that he has out. So if you want to check those out, and for anyone else who hasn't purchased yet, I put Old Guy REI the PayPal link for his shirt. So I don't know if any of you know, but he's selling an ORAT event shirt to help fundraise money for the Blind Center. So I believe they're $30 for a shirt that includes shipping, and $10 proceed will go to the donation or fundraiser, hopefully for the Blind Center. So the goal is 100 shirts and donate $1,000 to the Blind Center where the event will be held at. So in the comments and in the video, I'll put the link so that people can go check it out and go check out Old Guy REI channel. So if you want to see what the shirt looks like. And back to Dion's question real quick before I wrap things up. If what I'm going to do different in 2025 is not much. I'm going to just kind of double down on what I'm doing on the social media side, growing my network. I think the one thing is Dion folks always talk about the 5 years of suck. So I'm kind of 1 year past the five. I mean, getting closer to being completely over the 5 years of suck. But now things have kind of been reinforced for me as how things are working. So that's kind of why I'm just going to double down on what I'm doing. And just keep cleaning things up. I feel like, like I kind of talk about a lot. I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, and I'm just cleaning that up. And then things are just running a lot more smoothly now. So,
All right.
yeah.
I think one quote I've heard was, if you're starting a business, the first 5 years isn't when you make your money. The first 5 years are when you get good.
Yeah, I like that. You know what? Yeah, we'll have you guys back on. That on that final note, we'll leave this on this Twitter stuff. I just saw it. So it says the habits that built your 3 million company are actually preventing your 10 million breakthrough. So we can think about
That's a good
that.
one. I like
Yeah,
that.
we'll talk about that next time. But if I don't have you guys back on before the new year, have a happy holidays and
Happy
be safe
holidays.
out there. And this was always fun, everyone. So thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me
All
as
right.
well.
Bye, everyone.
All right. See you soon.